Reading involves the ability to look at something, cut out the background, look at the foreground, number one. Secondly, to understand what sounds go to that pattern. Third, adding meaning to that. And fourth, applying it in a particular or a relevant situation. When these four are there, that's what is called reading. However, the new age mom who's been looking at hashtags and trends is looking at visual perception, pattern recognition, and equating it to reading.
And equating it to developing their intelligence or knowledge.
Exactly.
I see. And what side effects does it have if you do that?
Side effect would be more chemical. When you've ingested something, it would be a side effect. I would say, how does it harm the nervous system, right? You've now introduced what we call symbolic language. In language acquisition, if you see, reading is what we call symbolic language, which is symbol for a word. Before the child has developed the ability to, respond to your voice. Now, if you notice when you've held a baby, and I'm sure because you love babies as well, I know that most of your language with the babies first is nonsense word. It comes from a part of your brain which is just connected with affection, and it cannot form words. It's a very important part for the baby to realize that I am loved beyond words. Right? And you want to hold the baby closer, there's a lot of bonding that happens. So oxytocin, a lot of neurotransmitters, everything comes in. Instead of bringing in oxytocin, which is the love hormone, you're bringing in cortisol, which is the performance-based hormone. You're bringing in dopamine, which is a reward mechanism. What do you need first? Do you need a reward mechanism or do you want affection? So we are messing with systems like this. Secondly, where I'm really concerned, and what we all need to be aware of, is that we are working against the natural acquisition of language, which is first I bond. In that bonding, I understand what is a natural sound, what is a word, what is a meaningless sound, and I make sense in that affectionate space. And then I move to also reciprocating some of those sounds. I understand how to use words. I make small sentences. I have a whole context, a vocabulary that is so rich before you take me to symbolic language. Right? You miss all this, and then they artificially create what is called hyperlexia. Hyperlexia is where I can recognize patterns and read, but read without comprehension. And this is a very dangerous aspect.
That's what we notice in a lot of children in the pre-primary and primary when they come to school.
It's also something that has become a recent trend because a lot of reading apps have come in. Right? In fact, the most beautiful quote I always use is, there is no app to replace your lap. It's only when the child is sitting bonding with you that reading really becomes a habit, and they'll read because they want to read, not because they're made to read. I can give you a lot of examples of children who have developed visual problems because of this, vision related problems because of this. Children who have problems in comprehension because they were introduced to vocabulary that was not age appropriate. There are children who have problem with figure background relationships, spatial awareness relationships, because a muscle group that was not ready to be developed was forced to be developed. And this is what we call a splinter skill. When I'm not physically ready for something and you force me to learn that skill, I will cope because that is expected of me. All organisms cope, but coping is not the same as learning through experience, learning through exploration, learning through joy in a joyful environment. So that's where this whole thing goes off balance.